Hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome Eric Schwartzman as an old friend of mine and quite an accomplished expert in digital social media. I've been listening, learning, and following Eric for 20 years, 15, 20 years. He's been all over the world. He's helped companies, organizations, large, small, figure out this game of how it's all played in terms of social digital. And I'm not going to waste any more time talking to you. I'm going to turn it over to Eric. I'd like to introduce you to Eric Schwartzman. Eric, welcome.
Thanks, Tim. Hi, everybody. It's great to be here at NYU to talk to you today about the art of the digital pivot. The pandemic really accelerated the shift to digital for so many companies. So many companies for years had said, we're not really an internet company. We don't have to deal with the internet. And then the pandemic came and the internet was all there was. It was the only channel left. And so there was this sort of mad dash to transform. And as a result, I think leadership's demands for effective digital marketing have never been higher. But despite all the demand, really the supply, I think, of worthy, well-qualified digital marketing generalists, people with the ability to coordinate a marketing program that combines owned, shared, earned, and paid media channels is actually quite scarce. So it's actually a good time to go into digital marketing because the demand exceeds the supply. Well, what exactly should marketers be focused on to deliver quality results? And how do you allocate finite resources for maximum gain? That's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about pivoting to digital marketing. So digital marketing is not social media. And digital marketing is not pay-per-click advertising. Those are just tactics. Digital marketing is about piecing all those tactics together in a cohesive, practical, actionable strategy. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to share with you what I see marketers doing right, where I think there's areas for improvement, and how I think you can leverage those insights to your advantage. So let's get started. So digital marketing is kind of like the California gold rush of the modern ages. And search engine optimization is its mantra. Search engine optimization, or SEO, is the art and science of making web content discoverable through Google organic search, which are the algorithmic results that Google displays on search results pages. So not the ads, right? But the algorithmic results. There are really many different ways that you can get visibility on Google, right? There's local search, there's business search, there's voice search, there's algorithmic search, there's paid search. But really SEO deals with the algorithmic results. So of the 100,000 or so prospectors who came out to California in the 1800s to stake their claim, these were prospectors looking to find gold in the mountains because they had heard, my gosh, you can go there, you can get rich. And so 100,000 people went out west to try to stake their claim, as we say. Now, the truth is, very few of them actually found any gold. But there was a guy named Sam Brennan, and he made the equivalent of $4 million a month selling picks and shovels, right? The picks were the tools and the shovels were the tools that the prospectors used to try to find gold. So everyone was searching for gold. Nobody was making any money, but the people who were selling the tools to try to find gold were the ones that got rich. And I tell you this because today there are more bloggers, podcasters, social media influencers, and SEO gurus out there selling courses and get rich quick schemes and services than there are businesses actually making money online. There are a few who have found a way to generate revenue online. This talk today is about how to become one of them. So those new to digital marketing can fall prey to an online influencer promoting a get-rich-quick scheme or a costly but ineffective subscription service that's going to show you how to either make ads or use social media or launch a course and make money. Or the other thing that happens is companies will rush prematurely onto social media. But the truth is, before you're really ready to pivot to digital media, you need a big picture understanding of what it takes to build and operate a digital business. So your website, social media, search engine optimization are all really just pieces of a much larger puzzle. The trick really is to understand how they fit together. So the reality is, in the business community today, most people don't want to hear what I'm telling you right now. They either assume it's too complicated for them to grasp and they shut down. People want simple answers. They want something that's tangible. But digital marketing is really as much an art as it is a science. So more often than not, there's not one correct answer. There's many correct answers. And when there's many correct answers, that tells you that ideas are only as good as how they're executed. Or they don't perceive the difference between good and great content online. There's only room for one #1 ranking in a Google search result. So if you're going to get that #1 search ranking, you've got to have the best content. It's not enough to be good. You do have to be great. And making great content takes persistence. It requires discretionary effort from the people who work for you and imagination. That's what it takes to create a top-ranking digital result. And most organizations lack the stamina and commitment to get there. So what happens is they squander precious resources searching for gold downstream instead of looking near the source. Meanwhile, competition online gets stiffer every day. So it's really not that difficult to understand digital business or digital marketing. Driving demand, generating leads, and transacting conversions shouldn't be a mystery. There's a logical sequence of steps to get there. So to explain this to you, I want to talk to you a little bit about ballet. Who would have thought that in a course about digital marketing, someone would talk to you about ballet? But I think it's a really good way of explaining how digital marketing works, because digital marketing is kind of like a ballerina turning on the tip of her toe. No one would call a ballet master a good teacher if they promised students they could be a principal dancer at the New York City Ballet in a 4-hour work week. Because it's understood that mastery of this century-old art form comes through well-defined training stages. So it takes years of practice to master. And there's a logical order to how the sequence and skills are acquired. Digital business, on the other hand, is in its infancy. So there's a ton of confusion about what it is and how to do it well. So I am a consultant. I see many companies fall prey to these self-proclaimed digital gurus who promise overnight success with SEO or YouTube or Facebook ads. I often am brought in to clean up the mess after this sort of a thing. And these approaches all fail for the same reason. They apply the steps out of sequence. The fact is, you need to learn to walk before you can run. Now, the gurus will tell you that all you really need is web traffic, right? A lot of people on your website. But it's a false promise. you don't need a lot of traffic. You need the right traffic. And you need to know how to win the trust of those visitors after they arrive at your website. So it's not enough to lead a horse to water. You have to make them drink too. Traffic is like a pair of toe shoes, right? You still need the choreography to execute a digital pivot. You know, before the internet, business divided this process into sales and marketing. The marketing people were responsible for leading the prospect or the lead to the salesperson who could close. But nowadays, there is no more salesperson. That's been automated largely because you wind up on an e-commerce site and you make the purchase yourself without talking to a salesperson. And that's typically handled by marketing. So now marketing has to figure out a way not just how to get the prospect to the website, but once they get there, you've got to get them to trust you enough to give you their email information or to give you their credit card and make a purchase. So if you think about that psychologically, what does it take to win someone's trust? What does it take to win your trust? Right? When you go to a website, you scan that website in a matter of seconds to make a decision about whether or not it's trustworthy. And there's a lot of things you do to make that determination that you may not even be aware of. If the site isn't located at an HTTPS URL, well, then it's going to have an open lock in the URL field, that little icon of the open lock. And you're not going to trust the site. You're not going to want to put your information into the site because it's not secure. So that's one way you can win trust. But another way is if you're content marketing and you have a blog and you're publishing content, but there's no author byline for the content that's published, or there's no date with the date of the publication, or just the published content doesn't look professional, like you would consider a New York Times page to look. Those are things that we very quickly, maybe not even consciously, scan a page and make an assessment of whether or not that page is trustworthy. So all these things matter now, right? It's not enough to just run an ad. Ads are great. Ads are a great way to build traffic. But if you run an ad and you bring somebody to your website and they don't convert, then you didn't do your job. So it really is not just about leading the horse to water. It's about making them drink as well. But what happens is, right, like this young dancer we see here, companies are eager to rush out on stage and spin in their first pair of toe shoes before they're ready. And so they come tumbling down and they're confused about why it doesn't work. And they hire somebody like me to come and dig them out of the rubble. I mean, this is my life. This is what I do on a daily basis. For 10 years, and this is actually how I met Tim, I led a 2-day workshop that I created for the Public Relations Society of America called the Social Media Boot Camp. And I led these sessions all over the world for government of Singapore, U.S. Department of State. I mean, pretty much every continent, almost every country. For 10 years, I was traveling the globe doing these. And every December, I would always plan it to be in New York because my wife loves New York. And she always wants to go to the the Lincoln Center, and see the Nutcracker, which is a popular ballet to see in December because the theme is Christmas. And so one year we went, and my wife got us front row center seats to see the Nutcracker. And it was incredible. Sitting right in the front of the theater, you could actually lean forward, look down into the orchestra pit, and see all the instruments. It was fantastic. And when the dancers came on stage, the principal dancers, which they called the prima ballerinas, performed their solos. And they would spin around effortlessly on the tip of their toe, almost like a music box fairy. You know, you see that, or a cake decoration where it's plastic and it turns around. It doesn't move a single thing, you know, as it turns. And it's a glorious mix of both artistry and athleticism. Fantastic to watch. And your jaw drops and you think, wow, that's fantastic. And it's fantastic because they make it look so easy. But in reality, a pirouette, which is what ballet masters call this turn, is anything but effortless. I watched a show on the Disney Channel called On Point. And it was all about the kids who try to get these apprenticeships with the New York City Ballet. And these kids make huge sacrifices, right? It's very competitive. The New York City Ballet only takes a handful of apprentices each year. So these kids are on trains for 2 hours after school to get into Manhattan to practice. And you realize that while it may be beautiful to see a ballerina turn on point with her arms extended, it doesn't start there. Behind the scenes, there's a ton of preparation, training, and discipline that goes into it. And I think the big reason so many companies struggle at digital marketing online is because they want to rush onto stage and spin before they're ready. They're not aware of this work that needs to be done before they go out on stage. Leadership sees a competitor's social media profile with lots of engagement, and they think, wow, that's fantastic. I want to do that too, right? Just like I did when I saw the ballerina. I got excited because I thought it was so fantastic. And I think the same thing is true of leadership at companies. They'll see a social media account that has, a bunch of followers, and they'll think, wow, we should just go do that. But they don't understand that you can't just go do that. There are things you have to do before you do that, or that's not going to work. So that's what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to walk you through this sequence. If you liken digital marketing to a pirouette, you realize that there's actually a logical order to executing a digital pivot too. So after 20 years of doing this, this is my 4-step framework for executing a digital pivot. This is the logical sequence with which you can go from the old to the new way of doing business and marketing online. We used to categorize media by distribution formats, right? There was mainstream print, radio, TV, trade publications, very neat, tidy categories. But today, media outlets distribute content in multiple formats, right? The New York Times has audio podcasts, CNBC has a website, Vogue magazine has an app. So it's no longer possible to classify media by format because almost all media produces almost all formats now. So today it's really more useful, in my mind, to classify media by the channel through which it's consumed, by the consumption channel. So the digital media channels are owned, shared, earned, and paid. And implementing them in that order increases the likelihood of success. So let's talk through these. So owned media is the first step of a digital pivot, right? Like the ballet dancer's pirouette, owned media sets up the pivot. And that setup is about getting your house in order and finding your center of gravity. Owned media is defined as a media channel that you own. In digital marketing, owned media is your website or custom mobile app. But when I say your website, I mean a site that lives at a web domain that you own, yourdomain.com. An Amazon store is not owned media. Your Amazon store may be great for cash flow and volume if you're in the e-commerce business, but your profit margin is always going to be thinner after Amazon takes their fees and commissions. So the cost to acquire customers through pay-per-click and social media advertising has similar expense ratios. right? You're paying for those sales. And so that comes right off the top. And they're really not your customers. They're Amazon's customers, because Amazon doesn't even give you the customer contact information. So you're really more like, and I don't know if this is a term you're familiar with, a sharecropper. This idea that you've been given some land to grow your crop, but in order to pay the landowner, you're going to have to give the majority of your crop to them. And so I sort of liken Amazon resellers as digital sharecroppers. And the reason I say it may be good for cash flow, because it is. I mean, you can blow out a lot of merchandise on an Amazon store and get a lot of cash. You're not going to make a lot of money on it, but you could use that cash flow to then finance your growth in other channels. Conversion ratios are highest when the customer journey or number of clicks between awareness and transaction is the lowest. So the further I have to get a customer to click, the more number of clicks they have to take to get to the transaction from the point where I bring them in, the fewer will convert. So if I bring someone in through Facebook, right, the likelihood that they're going to convert is very low. Whereas if I bring them directly to my website that I own, where I control the layout of the page and I control the customer relationship, the conversion is always going to be higher. So what is owned media? Well, owned media is digital analytics. Google Analytics is a popular tool for looking at what pages are most popular on your website, how people are getting to your website, the conversion path, which pages generate the most revenue. For me, I mean, when I'm trying to figure out a strategy for a client, I'm looking at Google Analytics every day in detail to try to figure out analytically what's working and what's not. The other thing I'm usually looking at is search engine optimization research. So I'm looking at a tool like SEMrush, Ahrefs, or Moz. Any of those three, they're all just as good. And I'm using those to figure out what keywords I'm ranking for, whether or not people who find me through those keywords stick around or leave or convert. And then I'm also looking at this concept of gated and ungated content. So ungated content is information on my website that anyone can find without having to log in or give me their email address. And then gated content is content that you have to actually register to get, right? Two different ways of trying to generate a lead. Gated content, very, very popular with business to business marketers who are looking to generate a lead that they can then turn over to direct sales staff. I'm looking at the path to purchase. So once I get to the website, how many clicks does it take for me to convert? Is it easy? Does it work well? You know, is that in order? You wouldn't invite someone over to your house for dinner without cleaning up first. And you really shouldn't invite someone over to your website until that's cleaned up first. And the way you clean up your website is by looking at the path to purchase and making sure that you can convert a transaction easily. Then I'm looking at keyword research. What terms do I want to get up for? What am I selling? When someone is looking to solve a problem that my product or service solves, what keyword are they searching on Google? And when they search that, how can I create content designed to get on their radar early in the purchasing decision so that as they get closer to a decision point, they're aware of me as one of the possible solutions to their problem? Content strategy. This is such an important one for owned media. And this is one I think companies, I see the most companies struggle the most with this one, content strategy. So companies want to create content to sell product. And so they often fail to perceive the difference between editorial and promotional content. So there's 500, 5,000 channels to choose from on television. There's everything now. But there's no classic advertising channel, even though there have been some great ads over the years. No one has launched the advertising network because there's no audience for advertising without editorial content, right? If you don't have the editorial content, you have no hole to put an ad in. And this is one companies really miss, so when they go to their content marketing, which is usually a blog or white papers, they'll create content that they think is interesting to their end user, but it's really just interesting to the C-suite, the CEO and the CMO and the CFO. It's more designed to make their egos feel good or make them feel good about their business, less thinking about a customer trying to solve a problem. How can I help them solve it? Case study example, just take a little break here. I'm working now with a winery, and it's a medium-sized winery in Northern California. And they make a varietal of wine called Pinot Noir. Pinot Noir is a type of Burgundy wine. And they're not the biggest, most respected brand. So what we've been doing is we've been doing reviews on YouTube of our wine versus the top wines. And then we've been writing articles about them, search engine optimizing them for our competitor's name. So now if you search the competitor's name, similar wines, what wine is like the competitor's name, you find us. Or if you search two popular wines versus each other, you find us. So most companies would say, well, I don't want to write about my competition. I don't want to do that because why would I want to help them? Well, the truth is, if you want to get noticed online, pick a fight with the market leader. It's the easiest way to get noticed online. There's already traffic looking for the market leader. There's not as much traffic looking for you. And you know that people who are going to your competitor could easily be served by you as well. So why wouldn't you start writing content about how you compare to your competitor? And in business to business marketing circles, this has become a common tactic now. If you're buying software and you search one software versus another software, you'll actually find all sorts of content marketing blog articles and white papers you can download that have been designed to get found by you. It's funny, we thought when we got the internet that this is great because we won't have to talk to a pushy salesperson anymore. We can just figure it out ourselves. And the truth is, yeah, we don't have to get talk to a pushy salesperson, but we're still being sold. We're just being sold through a search engine. They've anticipated the query that we're going to make. They've optimized content designed to rank for that query. We find the content, we find them, they sell us. So I guess it's self-service sales, but we're still being sold. Content marketing. Email marketing is also owned media marketing because you're not reliant on a third party to get your message across like you would be on Facebook, like you would be on Twitter, like you would be on TikTok. I don't know if you ever heard this term deplatformed, but it's a new term that describes someone being kicked off of a social network for failing to abide by the terms of service. Now, the truth is, sometimes you even get deplatformed without while you abide. You don't even fail to abide by the terms of service and you still get kicked off. So the truth is, when you build an audience, when you get followers on Instagram or you get followers on TikTok, the thing to remember is this: they're not your followers. They're TikTok's followers, they're Instagram followers, and they can take them away from you at any time. So that's not to suggest that these aren't good channels to market through. It's only to suggest that these are channels through which you acquire relationships, right? And once you have that relationship, you maintain it through email or through a direct relationship. So you use these third-party channels for customer acquisition, not customer retention. If you're using a third-party channel for customer retention, you're hemorrhaging margin on every sale. And I mean, it's fine to pay somebody to help you get a customer, but you don't want to pay that same outfit every time you have to make a sale by that customer. And this is what concerns me about these, restaurant delivery apps, let's say. The restaurant delivery apps now have rules that prohibit the restaurants from developing a direct relationship with the customer who's ordered through their channel. Well, that's not good for the restaurants, right? And so the restaurants are hemorrhaging margin. They're paying out, when you order from Grubhub, you're not just paying, the restaurant pays as well. They're actually, double billing on both sides. And so if you're a small restaurant, it's fine to try to use these services to get more customers. But once you get the customers, you want to sell direct. And of course, owned media is how you do that. Last but not least, certainly not least, for owned media is conversion rate optimization. And this is scientific, more scientific than artistic. This is about figuring out how to increase the percentage of people who, when they come to your website, convert to a sale or convert to a lead. And this is done through what's usually called A/B testing. So here's the dirty little secret about A/B testing that nobody wants to tell you. Okay. And this will make a lot of sense. It's common. It's straightforward enough. And I want to start with a quote from Kai-Fu Lee's book on AI. He was the leader of Google China before he went out on his own and became a venture capitalist. And what he said in his book is, there's no data like more data, right? Whoever has the most data wins, because they have statistically relevant information that they can use to optimize conversions on their site. You can only do that if you have a lot of data. I work with a lot of small companies, medium-sized companies who just don't have enough data to compete. So in this environment, big organizations with a lot of data have a very uneven advantage over small companies because we just don't have data. We're trying to optimize our checkout process. Well, we got a couple hundred conversions. That's not going to do it. We need a couple million conversions, and then we can see, but we're never going to have that because we're a small company. So that's when you're not just no longer marketing on impulse or on intuition. I love that. I love that word, intuition. Intuition is thought beyond reason. But you don't have to rely on intuition because you have hard numbers. So owned media, and this really is my playground. I mean, this is where I do most of my work, helping organizations get their owned media in order. The next step after your own media is in order, that's when you go to shared media. That's when you're ready for social media.
I got a quick question, Eric, if that's okay. I found something very interesting that you said regarding that.
Please, Tim.
And it was this idea that when I am trying to get someone to come on board with me, I would do well to have a review of products against my largest competitor. It just struck me as brilliant. And I never thought about that before. Can you give me an example of so we might understand how that actually might play out? Just a quick kind of a thought on how that might play out, setting up a review.
Yeah. I mean, would you like me to use the wine example more on that, or would you like to use another example?
Good metaphor to work with right there. Yes, absolutely.
Okay. All right. So this company is called Halleck Vineyard, Halleck. And they make this Pinot Noir, which is an award-winning Pinot Noir, but they're small production winery. The biggest production is a company called Bell Gloss, and it's B-E-L-L. I'm not sure if it's B-E-L-L-E or B-E-L-L-A. That's the first word. Second word, gloss, G-L-O-S. If you search that versus La Crema, C-R-E-M-A, if you just search Bella Gloss versus La Crema, you'll get my client's blog post, which is the comparison of those different wines to their own. And you'll see in the headline, it doesn't lead with theirs. It doesn't say Halleck Vineyard, versus these ones. It actually says the most searched brands are first, and then it's Halleck Vineyard. Because the idea is this, right? Most people don't know who Halleck Vineyard is, but they sure know who Bella Gloss is, and they sure know who La Crema is. And they're searching it every day because we have the research. We see that. We know how many times per month those are being searched. We also can look at, frankly, how asleep at the wheel those brands are from a search standpoint, because we can see a numerical ranking for the difficulty of that keyword. And we know, my gosh, this is a very easy keyword for us to get. Bella Gloss and La Crema have not done it. There is volume here, so let's do it.
It is amazing to me. I just did this. I just searched those two brands, and the first entry was this review by Halleck.
Yep.
And it goes through this very interesting kind. Now I'm on a platform with a much bigger audience than I could ever get by myself.
Right.
Amazing.
Yeah. You're on our website now, and I can tell you that we sell wine against that, because I can see it. I see people go to that page and then they go to the wine menu, or you see there's an ad also. So the blog is laid out as an article, and then in the body of the article, we actually have a conversion ad designed to push you over to another page where you can buy, and we sell wine like that. So it works. And it's a common tactic. It's much more common in tech. Tech is further ahead with this stuff. So if you want to see it for tech, a really good company that does it really well is who's the company that does the media databases? There's Muckrack, and then there's some others. Cision. So if you search Cision, here it is, Cision versus Meltwater. And you'll see just a ton. They're all over that, those guys. And people now actually have pages on their site where they build these charts and their tables. And on the tables, they'll have all the different brands on the left-hand side. And then they'll have a bunch of different features on the top with columns and who's got that feature and who doesn't. And those pages are designed to rank at the end. So you think about how someone makes a purchase, right? They start, they're problem aware. I have a problem. I need to solve my problem. How am I going to take my family on a vacation? I'm going to search Florida vacations. I'm going to search beach vacations. I'm going to search island vacations. And then I'm going to see, wait a minute, these guys, there's all these ones in the Keys, the Florida Keys, and there's good prices. That looks pretty good. So now I'm no longer just problem aware. I'm solution aware. I see, oh my God, I can go to the Keys. So now I start searching Key West vacations. And as I search Key West vacations, I see Club Med starts to pop up. I see Sandals starts to pop up, other all-inclusive resorts. And now I'm brand aware. Now I start searching the brand. So if you're doing a this versus that strategy, you're trying to swoop in for the guy who's brand aware, getting ready to make the final purchasing decision, right? Get him to make a switch right at that last minute. That's what that is. But really, honestly, since you can't predict the path, you need to be present at all stages. You need to be present when they're problem aware, when they're solution aware, and when they're brand aware. And by the way, I cover all this in the book, the digital pivot. I'll give you a link to where you can get it. And I also, if you prefer to listen, I did record it as an audiobook as well. And you can get it on audible.com, and it's me reading it. So you'll hear the author reading the book.
That's a fabulous, that answers my question. And you would use a tool like SEMrush or Ahrefs to actually get you into the understanding of where some of these searches are going, what they're searching for, and so forth, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So what I do is I create these groups of keywords. I tag my keywords. So I'll tag all my keywords that are around competitors as my competitor tag keywords. And I'll look at what happens with that. I mean, we just uploaded a New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc versus California Sauvignon Blanc review this week. And New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc is quite popular. We have a Sauvignon Blanc as well. So we just took the best-selling New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc that's in the same class as ours. And, the winemakers who make the wine are very knowledgeable, and they're also very fair. They're not there saying, oh, this is terrible, this is good. They're actually very positive, talking about the positive aspects of both, but also trying to make some distinctions about how they're different. One might go better with lamb. One might go better with fish.
But
one
you
might
wrote
go better
those
with curry. One might go better with cheese. And these are the types of things that they're covering.
You wrote those on behalf of your client?
No, actually, writing it is such a small piece of the job.
Yeah.
That's such a small piece. I've got to come up with the strategy. I've got to figure out which wines they're going to taste. I've got to direct the video of them tasting it. Then after the video is made, I have to find a writer to write it. Then once it comes back, I have to have my SEO tweak it. And then the person who works for me, who does content management, will actually upload it to the site and make sure it's just perfect for the client. So really, it's the whole process. I mean, if you think about the writing is probably a quarter of the process, big picture.
But it's not any good.
I'm looking at the analytics and saying, is it working? Am I going to go this direction? What am I going to do?
So that's where A/B testing comes in also.
It does. I mean, I'm constantly discounting my stats because I don't have enough of them.
Okay, got it.
I'm not Amazon, so I just don't have enough.
Listen, I'm just fascinated by this because I think when people actually try to do this, this is where they need to know. You said something earlier too about trustworthiness. And so if you're putting up a review like this and you're going to a lot of understanding to a lot of work to understand who you're talking to, what it is they want, who they might be competing interest in that equation. We're trying to move that space in between the awareness and conversion. That was just exactly what you said. Now, to get to the fewest number of clicks, one of the ways to get there is to go to what would be perceived to be an informational piece that would provide me some understanding about these two products that would be of high comparison. Is that correct?
Well, it genuinely is informational. I mean, I hate the term content marketing. I hate that term. Because it sounds like, hey, let's create this sort of innocuous content designed to sell something. And that's really not what we're doing. We are trying to create journalism. Exactly. We're trying to create thought leadership content. We're not just trying to create a better article than the one that's already up there. Anyone can do that, right? What we're trying to do is how do we get ahead of all the competition and do something truly innovative, right? So I'll give you an example. You want another case study?
Yeah.
Okay. So hat maker, okay, has a website, sells a lot of hats, big company. And, these guys are trying to figure out how to come up first when people search terms around hats. And one of the things people search when they're looking to buy a hat is they search best hat for face shape. There's different kinds of shapes of face, right? There's square face, there's round face, there's heart-shaped face, there's oval face, right? We all have different face shapes, and some hat shapes look better on different face shapes than others. So when you search best hats for face shapes, you'll find all their competitors who have written articles that say, okay, if you've got an oval, then you use this. If you've got, a square, you use that. Now we want to come up first. So what do? Do we just write a better article about that? No, we got to take it to the next level. So what we do is we figure out what are the apps that are out there now for determining your face shape? And let's write a review about those apps, which are the best ones. And what are the apps for virtual try-ons? Because there's all sorts of virtual try-on apps that let you try things on. So instead of just doing the same, right, we go to the next level. We write an article. It's about how to determine your face shape and then how to try on hats virtually, right? So we're sort of one step ahead. Now, that's never something you could do with just SEMrush data, because with SEMrush, it's just going to tell you, well, these are the keywords. It's not that's where imagination comes in. That's where art comes in. And that's what frustrates so many corporations that are looking for reliable, predictable outcomes. You know, when you're doing creative work, it's not always predictable. You know, I can tell you with pretty good certainty what I think is going to hit and what's not, but I'm not always going to be right. Sometimes it's not going to hit. Whereas with advertising, you know, certainly if you spend this much money, you're going to make this much money. You also know how much margin you're going to sacrifice as a result. In the organic game, right? If you can come up with content that's imaginative and gets you a first position ranking, you can have that ranking for years, and you can generate revenue off of that for years. And there's more trust with the algorithmic results than with the advertising results, because people think that Google knows. You know, they trust Google. That's why they go there to search.
And that's because Google is actually trying to gather millions of data points about what people are saying about that particular issue or what they're thinking about. Do you use something like Answer?
But you know what? They're not perfect either. They make all sorts of mistakes. And so there's sort of two sides of what I do. There's people that they call white hat organic marketers and black hat organic marketers. Black hat organic marketers are the folks who are typically trying to game the system. And there are many out there who do a very good job of it and make a lot of money. But they're the ones who are most susceptible to losing traffic when there's an algorithm tweak. Whereas the white hat marketers are creating a more sustainable strategy that you can leverage for the long term. It's less risky.
An algorithm tweak being Google waking up and saying, wait a minute, they're shamming this. We have to change this. And therefore the black hatters get caught off guard because they don't have the code to fix that.
It's like a game of cat and mouse, right? Yeah. Once we start to figure out the algorithm, they reverse engineer it and make it better so that we can't do that anymore.
Eric, there are lots of listening tools out there like Answer the Public.
Yeah.
Something like that to help you kind of come up with those insights that you told us about just a couple of minutes ago. And I know we're running a little long on time, but
sure. There's nothing wrong with Answer the Public. I mean, you know, the problem with these tools, and, you know, this is something I cover in my book.
Yeah.
You know, the problem with these tools is if they're all disconnected and they don't talk to each other, it's very difficult to find meaning. Meaning is the triangulation of data sets. It's about laying one data set over another. The problem with a tool like, you know, Answer the Public, it's great for brainstorming in the conference room. But I mean, when it comes down to really figuring out a strategy, you know, it doesn't connect to anything. So you can't really get anything out of it because it's just one sliver of data. And you really need so many other pieces of data to consult to get actionable intelligence.
I really appreciate you answering the questions like that off the cuff as quickly, because what I'm trying to do for the students right now is just to give them an overlay of how tricky this can be and how you really must stay focused to what the data is saying to us, and however you can gather that data, the better. Now, we are short on time. I've taken you too long with the questions, but you were showing us shared here as another step. If you make a quick understanding of how this works, maybe that would kind of get us to.
So I call shared media step 2, because really, if someone is going to follow you, typically they're going to, you know, check you out first. You know, they're going to want to go to your, let's say, for example, you hire a publicist and you say, hey, I want you to get me some press. Well, the first thing you're going to need is a website with information about you, because that's where the press is going to go. The second thing they're going to do is they're going to go down to the footer of the menu on your website, and they're going to look for the link to your social media accounts. And they're going to click over and see if you have any followers. And I mean, if you've got, say, YouTube, as one of the social media networks that you have available on the footer of your web menu, and someone clicks on it and you have a dozen followers or a dozen subscribers, as they are on YouTube, then they're going to say, well, maybe these guys aren't real. Maybe they're not legitimate. They're just getting started. You know what? It's too risky for me to write a story about them because I don't know if they're real. So really, we call this social proof. Social media is not so much about sales. It's about just demonstrating and proving to potential customers, to the media, to prospects, to people you're trying to recruit to work for you, that you have a community that validates your point of view. So and you're not going to get that without a website. So website first, right? Owned media, shared media second. And, the funny thing is, the one point I'll make on this, social media punches way above its weight class. So like when I look, if you just say Google average e-commerce revenue by source or by channel, you'll get this report. It comes out every year. It's the Influencer Marketing Hub report on e-commerce benchmarks. And you'll see, social media never is more than 8%. So 8% of all revenue for e-commerce is social media. Yet everybody's spending all this time on it like it's so important. It's not that important. It gets way too much attention from marketers.
Interesting.
So, I cut my teeth in public relations. That's where I started. And in the old days, I would actually take a press kit, which was a dual pocket presentation folder with printed press releases and biographies, and I would put it in an envelope. And they had these things called stamps that you would get, lick it and put it on there. And they had these things called a mailbox, and you would put it in there, and someone would actually deliver a printed out web page and then you'd call on the phone. Hey, did you get my press kit? Right? It doesn't work that way anymore. Now it's your website, So the funny thing is about it, with a press kit, you just had to write a good press kit and send it out in the mail. Now you not only need to write good content, you've got to have an easy to use site. Because if the user interface is lousy and you frustrate the person, you're not going to get the story. So now you not only need to tell a good story and do a good pitch, you got to have a good user interface too, So
it's amazing. You just said it brought me back to my early days when I was in PR, and actually remember late at night hand delivering these news releases to TV and radio and print and so forth. And then when I later worked on the other side in news, I remember getting a knock on the door late at night and somebody having one of those, and that's just all it's all gone. There's nothing like that anymore.
Gone.
Even the
so
media.
If you think about like how you would assess the influence quotient of a follower base, you can kind of group them into these classes, right? You've got your null influencers with less than 100 followers. These people are not influential at all, zero influence. You get your nano influencers from 100 to 10,000. And, particularly in business to business circles, in niche categories, you've got some very influential people in this space. Usually, they're four figures or more. They're 1,000 to 10,000. But you do have some influential people here. Micro influencers. These are influencers that are very engaged with their followers because they don't have that many followers, so they can be. Mid-tier, 50 to 500,000 followers. These are people that are less engaged. They're more celebrity status because they've got so many followers. There's just too many people to respond to. Then you've got your macro influencers. This is like an Ann Handley or, a Brian Solis. They would both be macro influencers. And they're not really going one-on-one with their audience because they can't. They're just too much response. And then of course you've got your mega influencers. You've got your Kim Kardashians and your Charlie D'Amelios and your Gary Vaynerchuk's, that are really up there at the top. I really believe that you can establish a relationship between followers and revenue. I think it's going to be different for everyone, but I definitely think, if you've got this level of reach, once you start to really, break mid-tier, that's when you can actually start to drive traffic through social at scale and bank on it too. But again, you got to have somewhere to send them so that you can convert them. So it would be foolish to be on social media trying to get followers until you had a website that had a path to purchase. You'd be kind of like that dancer who rushed out on stage in her new pair of toe shoes only to come tumbling down before she was ready because you hadn't really learned to walk yet.
Perfect. Yeah, perfect. Perfect. Hey, listen, that's great. I appreciate you very much taking the time.
Sure.
And I would invite you back anytime that you have time, because I think this is very helpful for people working in marketing today.
Yeah.
And that's,
I'll tell you, I love it because I'm learning every day. And for me, I mean, I used to be excited to crack the paper. Now I'm excited to crack Google Analytics and SEMrush and see, what the impact of the work I did was.
Oh, very true. Thank you very much, Eric. And again, on behalf of my class, I really am very appreciative of you taking the time to tell us about this. We'll be in touch and reading your book.
It was a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.